Everyone, and welcome you all to my presentation. Let me thank you all for coming today. The presentation is structured as follows: Introduction to Sustainable Development Goals, Role of the Government and other institutions in promoting sustainable development, and conclusion. Development involves a progressive transformation of economy and society. Due to negative impact of industrialization, the environment has been affected. The negative impact of industrialization, actually we have seen the negative impact of industrialization across the world. We have witnessed mass migration of people from urban areas to rural areas to urban areas, decline of the cottage industries, pollution, and depletion of natural resources, child labor, and overuse of fossil fuels, etc. According to World Bank, 7.3% of the global population, that is 622 million people, will live in extreme poverty in 2030. The middle class people is expected to increase from 1.8 billion in 2009 to 3.2 billion by 2020 and 4.9 billion by 2030. Total human caused global temperature, that is human caused global temperature, increased from 0.8 degrees Celsius to 1.3 degrees Celsius between 1850 and 2019. Well-mixed greenhouse gases contributed a warming 1 degree Celsius to 2 degrees Celsius. Most of the world's planet heating pollution comes from just a few countries. China, India, United States of America, and European Union were responsible for 83% of emissions in 2022. Since the beginning of 2024 and as of 1st October 2024, approximately 460,000 chikungunya virus disease cases and over 170 deaths have been reported worldwide. So in this context, the sustainable development assumed significance. The sustainable development concept came into force for overall development of human beings, but without any negative impact on them. According to the World Commission on Environment and Development, development that meets the needs of the present without compromising the ability of the future generations to meet their own needs is referred as sustainable development. The sustainable development aims to balance economic growth with environmental protection and social justice. For example, when we use the natural resources, for example, like oil and gas, we need to do it in a way that it does not harm our environment or our society. We need to make sure there is enough left for future generations, and we need to make sure that everyone has fair access to these resources. So the doctrine of sustainable development was discussed at first in the Stockholm Declaration of 1972, and the World Commission on Environment and Development submitted its report in 1987, which is known as Brundtland Commission. The Rio Declaration on Environment and Development codified the principle of sustainable development in 1992. Sustainable development recognizes that growth must be both inclusive and environmentally sound. To reduce poverty and build shared prosperity for today's population and to continue to meet the needs of the future generations. The core elements of sustainable development are: number one, economic growth. So throughout the world, in almost all countries, economic growth should be accelerated. Number two, social inclusion. Number three, environmental protection. These are the three core elements of sustainable development. The sustainable development goals were born at the United Nations Conference on Sustainable Development in Rio de Janeiro in 2012 with an objective of setting universal goals that meet the urgent environmental, political, and economic challenges facing the world. The Sustainable Development Goals replace the Millennium Development Goals, which started a global effort in 2000 to tackle the indignity of poverty. So here, just I am repeating, the Sustainable Development Goals replace the Millennium Development Goals, which were started in 2000 to tackle the indignity of poverty. The achievements of Millennium Development Goals are more than 1 billion people have been lifted out of extreme poverty since 1990. So more than 1 billion people have been lifted out of extreme poverty since 1990. Child mortality rate dropped by more than half since 1990. The number of out of school children has dropped by more than half since 1990. HIV or AIDS infections fell by almost 40% since 2000. 193 countries of United Nations enhanced a new development agenda in 2015. The 2030 Agenda for Sustainable Development puts forth an ambitious plan to achieve 17 SDGs, Sustainable Development Goals, and its associated 169 targets within a span of 15 years. The short titles of 17 Sustainable Development Goals are no poverty, zero hunger, good health and well-being, quality education, gender equality, clean water and sanitation, affordable and clean energy, decent work and economic growth, industry, innovation and infrastructure, reduce inequalities, sustainable cities and communities, responsive consumption and production, climate action, life below water, life on land, peace, justice, and strong institutions, and the 17th Sustainable Development Goal is partnership for the goals. These are the Sustainable Development Goals. The estimates suggest $5 trillion to $7 trillion per year is required for financing these goals worldwide, and $3.9 trillion per year in developing countries. So this much of expenditure is required per year to achieve these goals. According to United Nations Conference on Trade and Development, the current investment in developing countries is around $1.4 trillion, leading to a shortfall of $2.5 trillion per year. So it clearly reflects the developing economies are experiencing the problem of the finance shortage in terms of achieving the Sustainable Development Goals. As party to United Nations framework, here I would like to introduce one of the important concepts, nationally determined contribution. As party to United Nations Framework Convention on Climate Change and its Paris Agreement, India submitted its first nationally determined contribution in the year 2015, comprising two quantifiable targets. Number one, to reduce the emissions intensity of its GDP by 33% to 35% by 2030 from 2005 level, to achieve about 40% cumulative electric power installed capacity from non-fossil fuel based energy resources by 2030. So these are the targets taken up in 2015, but the targets have been revised in 2022. In August of 2022, India updated its nationally determined contribution, according to which target to reduce emissions intensity of its GDP has been enhanced to 45% by 2030 from 2005 level. And the target on cumulative electric power installed capacity from fossil fuel-based energy resources has been enhanced to 50% by 2030. To achieve the objectives of sustainable development, India has taken some measures such as spread of awareness and knowledge of birth control measures and literacy. So government has taken certain measures in terms of spreading the awareness and knowledge of birth control measures under literacy. And government has promoted the use of CNG and LPG. Government has focused more on the use of solar and wind energy as they are non-exhaustible. Banning the use of plastic bags is also one of the measures taken up by Government of India to achieve the sustainable development goals. To control pollution, the Government of India is imposing pollution tax, particularly pollution tax on the industries emitting smoke, and regular vehicle checkups have been adopted by Government of India. The input efficient methods have been devised that not only increase the productivity, but also efficiency with which the inputs are used. So recently, the Sustainable Development Report has been released. As per the Sustainable Development Report of 2024, globally, on average, 84% of the Sustainable Development Goals targets showing limited progress. So the entire world economy is far away from achieving the Sustainable Development Goals. As I mentioned, 84% of the Sustainable Development Goals targets showing limited progress. The Sustainable Development Goals progress varies significantly across the countries. Some countries have achieved some good progress, and some countries are lagging behind in terms of achieving the progress. Nordic countries continue to lead Sustainable Development Goals achievement. BRICS countries making significant progress. Poor and vulnerable nations lag far behind in terms of achieving Sustainable Development Goals. On the other hand, low-income countries and lower middle-income countries unable to access affordable long-term capital for financing the Sustainable Development Goals, and sustainable development targets related to food and land systems are particularly off track. And it is also estimated globally 600 million people will still suffer from hunger by 2030. And now, as far as the second part of our today's lecture is concerned, the role of the government and other institutions in promoting the sustainable development. We are aware the role of the government is crucial in promoting the sustainable development, as the government has power. The government has power to make and enforce policies that can positively impact the environment and society. Government must create policies that are sustainable and equitable. So the Indian government also has come up with some policies. The policies designed by government should be sustainable and equitable in the long run to strike a balance between economic growth and environmental preservation. Sustainable practices can be incentivized by providing tax breaks or subsidies to businesses. And likewise, the government of India is providing the tax breaks and subsidies, particularly for environmentally friendly practices. And government also can collaborate with educational institutions to incorporate sustainable development principles into their curricula. And government also can collaborate with other countries to develop sustainable development goals and share their best practices. Now, as far as the role of the central government, state government, and at the same time district level local bodies are concerned, here just I am introducing the concept of localization of sustainable development goals. Localization of sustainable development goals is the responsibility of all three levels of government. At the central level, Niti Aayog, the Government of India's premier think tank, has been entrusted the responsibility of coordinating the Sustainable Development Goals. So, Niti Aayog has been entrusted the task of coordinating the SDG Sustainable Development Goals. Ministry of Statistics and Program Implementation is engaged in the process of developing national indicators for the Sustainable Development Goals. Central ministries are responsible for providing data for the National Indicator Framework. Comptroller and Auditor General of India is responsible for conducting audit on the preparedness to achieve the Sustainable Development Goals. And we have Finance Commission. The Finance Commission suggests a mechanism for mobilizing resources at the local governance. And we have training institutions across the country. The national training institutions are responsible for designing tools and programs for capacity development of officials. And these are the various institutions working at the central level for achieving the sustainable development goals. The Niti Aayog works in collaboration with Ministry of Statistics and Program Implementation for monitoring the progress on the sustainable development goals. Following the principles of cooperative federalism, Niti Aayog works with the states and union territories and the Panchayat Raj institutions at the local level towards strengthening center-state cooperation and advancing the development outcomes in the country. Along with the Niti Aayog, the state governments and union territories are equal stakeholders in the process of designing national priorities and strategies for the sustainable development goals. At the state level, states and union territories are the main drivers of localization of sustainable development goals in India. So, just once again, I am repeating, state governments and union territories are the main drivers of the localization of sustainable development goals in India, and they create their own institutional structure. In every state, you will find their own institutional structure for implementing the sustainable development goals in their specific context. The development of the Department of Planning and Statistics is the nodal department at the state or sub-national level, and it is responsible for developing sustainable development goal vision document for the state. So in every state we will find the Department of Planning and Statistics. So it is the nodal department at the state level or at the sub-national level, and this department is responsible for developing sustainable development goals vision document for the state, and this department coordinates with the line department and with the district and aligning budget allocations based on sustainable development goal priorities. So the planning department, every state will have its own planning department. The planning department also carries out capacity building initiatives on the sustainable development goals. As far as the district level is concerned, the Department of Planning and Statistics and the Sustainable Development Goal Cell coordinate with elected representatives of Panchayat Raj institutions and the urban local bodies through the National Institute of Rural Development (NIRD) to carry out actions on sustainable development goals. NIRD is the nodal institute that designs sustainable development goal related training programs. It provides a training for the officials involved in the in terms of in implementing the sustainable development goals. So NIRD is the nodal institute that designs sustainable development goal related training programs for officials working in urban and rural local bodies. This National Institute of Rural Development coordinates with the State Institute for Rural Development in each state. In each state, you will also find State Institute for Rural Development. This NIRD coordinates with the State Institute for Rural Development in each state and union territory to conduct capacity building initiatives to help officials align the local plans of development with the sustainable development goals. On the other hand, the government is also implementing a number of targeted programs such as Mahatma Gandhi National Rural Employment Guarantee Scheme, PM Awas Yojana Gramin, PM Gram Sadak Yojana, Deen Dayal Antyodaya Yojana, National Social Assistance Program, Deen Dayal Upadhyay Gramina Kaushalya Yojana. So the government of India is implementing all these programs to achieve the objectives of the sustainable development goals. As per Niti Aayog, the Sustainable Development Goal Index, Niti Aayog formulate Sustainable Development Goal Index. As far as this index is concerned, India's national score has been raised from 60 in 2019-20 to 66 in 2020-21 and then to 71 in 2023-24. So it clearly reflects India's national score in the Sustainable Development Goal Index formulated by Niti Aayog has been increased consistently. India has shown significant progress in the areas of poverty eradication. So in terms of poverty eradication, India has shown significant progress, decent work, climate action, life on land, and economic growth. So in these aspects, India has shown very good progress as far as this index is concerned. According to Niti Aayog index, the states such as Uttarakhand, Kerala, Tamil Nadu, Goa, and Himachal Pradesh were the highest scoring states, while Bihar, Jharkhand, Nagaland, Meghalaya, and Arunachal Pradesh were lagging behind in the score. So this is about role of government and other institutions. Now, just I would like to focus on key government interventions contributing to sustainable development goals improvement. So here you will find some data on the programs implemented by the government of India. Jal Jeevan Mission has provided tap water connections to over 149 million households. So 149 million households have been benefited from tap water connections. 1.4 crore youth being trained under Skill India Mission. All of you are aware that Government of India has come up with the Skill India Mission. Under this mission, the youth have been trained. 1.4 crore youth have been trained under Skill India Mission. Construction of over 40 million houses under PM Awas Yojana. 40 million houses have been constructed. Provision of 100 million LPG connections through PM Ujjwala Yojana. 300 million people have been benefited from the Ayushman Bharat PM Jan Arogya Yojana. 800 million people benefited from the National Food Security Act. 3,400 billion rupees was directly transferred through PM Jandan accounts. And Indian government is allowing 100% foreign direct investments through the automatic route for renewable energy projects, where the government of India focused more on the renewable energy. So in terms of renewable energy projects, 100% foreign direct investment has been allowed. PM Mudra Yojana sanctioned 43 crore loans aggregating 25.5 lakh crore for entrepreneurial aspirations of the youth besides funds of funds. 11 crore toilets and 2.23 lakh community sanitary complexes have been built in rural area. So in order to improve sanitation facilities in rural area, the government of India has taken these steps. Startup India and startup guarantee schemes. Both the schemes are assisting the youth under Mahatma Gandhi National Rural Employment Guarantee Act, a total of 11.37 crore households availed employment. So 11.3 crore households have been benefited by way of getting employment under this scheme, and a total of 289.24 crore percentage of employment has been generated. So as a whole, 11 crore households availed employment under Mahatma Gandhi National Rural Employment Guarantee Scheme. So a total of 289.24 crore percentage of employment also been created under Mahatma Gandhi National Rural Employment Guarantee Scheme. As far as multidimensional poverty is concerned, 135 million Indians escaped multidimensional poverty in the 5 years between 2015-16 and 2019-21. So 135 million Indians escaped multidimensional poverty in between 2015-16 and 2019-21. Over 500 million Indians have been benefited from cashless health insurance, with out-of-pocket health expenditure falling from 63% in 2014 to 39% in 2024. So here just I have interpreted the government interventions and contributions to sustainable development goals improvement, and we are towards at the end of the lecture. To achieve the sustainable development goals targets by 2030, see, I would like to focus on the challenges to be experienced by Indian economy in achieving these goals. To achieve the sustainable development goals targets by 2030, India must address some of the key challenges it faces. Just see, if you observe gender inequality. So inequality between men and women can be seen not only in terms of income, in terms of worker participation rate also. You will find gender inequality can be seen in some other aspects also. Deforestation, air and water pollution, inadequate waste management, inadequate pace of improvement in certain issues, such as improved water, clean cooking fuel, women's well-being, etc. At the same time, in terms of indicators, some of the indicators, we find the regional differences also. Some regions have been developed in terms of some of the indicators such as education, health, sanitation, and in case of some other aspects also. The variation in certain indicators such as neonatal under 5 mortality, neonatal and under 5 mortality, improved sanitation and access to electricity, it should be reduced. The weak financial conditions of urban local bodies. At the beginning, we have seen the developing economies unable to finance more on achieving the sustainable development goals. As far as Indian economy is concerned, we also find weak financial conditions of urban local bodies, multiplicity of government structure, limited efforts to localize sustainable development goals, weak governance structure of Indian cities, growing urban unemployment, lack of effective leadership, lack of coordinated partnerships, lack of investments, and indicators with effective data collection. This is also one of the major drawbacks as far as the collection of data with regard to some of the goals are concerned. In terms of data collection, we are experiencing certain difficulties, and effective data collection and possible bottlenecks in the institutions, process related to planning, implementation, and monitoring of sustainable development goals. So these are the challenges that India faces in terms of achieving the sustainable development goals. Just I would like to conclude my presentation by highlighting some of the issues assume significance in terms of achieving the sustainable development goals. Protecting the environment from damage due to human activities, investment in human capacity. To promote human capacity, there is a need to invest heavily on education and health facilities, providing smart infrastructure, avoiding the wastage, decarbonize the energy system, responsible use of information technology, greater collaboration across the civil society and government and markets to reinforce its efforts to improve the quality of life for all of its citizens. So these are the steps that are to be taken up by Government of India to achieve sustainable development goals by 2030. In addition to this, I would like to emphasize the importance of the private investments. The role of private investment and a shift towards sustainable financing are essential for realizing the sustainable development goals. So, with this, I will stop my presentation. I thank the Sakshi Education for giving me this opportunity uh, to participate in the webinar on sustainable development goals. Thank you, one and all.